Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about all-day topwater. October and May is just a great time for topwater fishing, as is all summer, but these 2 months generally here in Arizona, we can fish topwater fish all day long. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about all the baits that I like, some new baits for me that I'm going to try, and also the rods and reels I like. And there's some cases I have set these rods and reels up perfectly to throw certain types of these topwater baits, so I really want to share that with you. But first, I would like to do something I haven't done before, and that's introduce you to an iOS app that is a sponsor of this channel. The app is called My Eyes Only. You can find it in the Apple App Store. It's good for iPhones, iPads, and Macs. Turns out I have owned this app since 2008 when I developed it myself. It's gone through many renovations through the years, and now it is what's actually sponsoring this channel. My Eyes Only is an app for your digital life. It's really a password app that's morphed into much more. All your personal digital data that you might want to keep, driver's license information, credit card information, passwords, where it got its start with. I can take pictures of certain things like my license plate, my boat number, things like I want to keep with me, you know, all the things I need. That's what this app is absolutely fantastically great for. It encrypts all the data, it backs it up to our servers, and it syncs the data between all your devices you have on Apple platforms. If you have an iPhone and want to support this channel, please download the app and do the configure steps to get on board and make yourself an account. Add in some data, you'll see how easy it is to do. And then of course, if you really like the app or you want to support the channel, please do a subscription. I have links below to our website where you can learn all about this app, and I have a link to the App Store. So if you're on your iPhone, you can just go ahead and click on that link and it'll take you right to the App Store where you can quickly download it for free. It doesn't cost anything to download. Launch the app, go through the configure steps, and voila, you can start using the app. Anyway, let's get back to the fishing video. So let's talk about all-day topwater. Right now, if you get to the water and you get to the lake early and you start fishing before the sun hits the water, you can catch all kinds of topwater fish on most of our Arizona lakes. Sometimes, as soon as that sun hits the water, boom, it's over, okay? It's like a frenzy, and then boom, it stops. Okay, that happens like that on any given day, but other days this time of year things can be different. So let's talk about that. One thing to note is after the feeding frenzy on the topwater stops, you can go to finesse fishing. Fish drop shots, Senkos, do things like that, and you'll probably keep catching fish. And that's what I generally do, but I keep my topwater bait on the deck, and every once in a while I'll pick it up and I'll make a cast. I'll give it a shot where there's a popper, walking the dog, just to see what happens. On some days, there's this feeding frenzy first thing in the morning. They feed up, and then they just slow down and stop biting. That's why you go to finesse fishing. But generally, a few hours later, 2 or 3 or 4 hours later, they'll start biting again. And a lot of times you don't notice it. It's very, very stunning sometimes where you can actually catch nothing for many hours, and then you pick up that topwater, and first or second cast, they'll eat it. All they're telling you is that they're ready to go again, they're hungry, they're after it. You probably start throwing a lot of different reaction, but there's nothing more fun than an explosive blow up on a topwater, especially in the middle of the day when you least expect it. So that's awesome, and let's talk a little bit about my favorite topwater baits. First, let's talk about my favorite topwater lure, the original Rico. This guy's all beat up, okay? I've had this 20 years, let's say, haven't lost it yet, but I love this particular bait. It's small and dainty. It weighs a 1/4 ounce soaking wet, and I like throwing this bait on a bait caster. It has taken me a while to figure out exactly the right setup for this particular bait using a bait caster. So let me show you. This is the St. Croix Legend Tournament Finesse Glass Cranker. It is 7'2", medium power and a moderate action, but it is a hybrid rod, so that means it's got carbon and glass that runs the entire length of this rod, and that really, really slows down that action when you're fighting a fish. The next key component in this outfit is the Shimano Metanium DC reel. This reel is a size 70, as you can see. It's fantastic. The DC controls the backlash as I'm making these long casts with this super light little bait. And I think that is just an incredible reel to go on this particular rod. In addition, you can see that I have braided line here. It is 10-pound test braided line, and I tie on a 10-pound test monofilament leader. It's unusual perhaps to use braided line on a setup like this, and it's probably unusual to use 10-pound test, but because it's so thread-like, I can really make long casts. I can really send this lure far out in front of me. And that's one of the keys. I want to make really long casts because often the topwater fishing is better when the water's cleaner or clear or near clear. So you got to get that bait away from the boat. And when you're throwing these tiny little baits like this, okay, you gotta be set up just right. And I think this particular setup is just fantastic. Besides the 1/4 ounce Rico, there's the Rio Rico, obviously. I have only one of these, but this is favored by all my colleagues and friends. They love this because it weighs 0.44 ounces, a little less than a half, much easier to throw, and that's why people love it. Another couple poppers that I have and I like, this is the Megabass PopX. It's also a 1/4 ounce. It has different action, so if I want to try something different, I have it in my boat. And this is the PopMax. Now this is definitely about a 1/2 ounce lure, easy to throw, and I love this color. It's like a bluegill color, beautiful. When I'm using these little bit larger baits, 1/2 ounce type baits, I can use it on another rod, and I can have 2 rods hooked up at the same time. And this is the St. Croix Legend Tournament Finesse Carbon Cranker. It is also 7'2", but it has a medium heavy with a moderate fast action. Now what's interesting about this medium heavy, by the way, on this particular rod is really very on the light side of the medium heavy, which is perfect, okay? And it's why I love this for not only these larger topwaters, I love this one for cranking. Both these rods I've talked about so far, I use them for crankbaiting and for topwater. If there's a crankbait bite on, there's a crankbait on each one of these rods, and if there's a really awesome topwater bite, I'll put a bait on each one of these. This particular PopMax here and this Rico, by the way, can easily be thrown on this. It'd be fantastic. When I'm throwing topwater on this rod here, I'm going to throw pure monofilament. Depending on what I'm up to, the kind of cover, you know, I'll do 10 or 12 pound. I think I have 10 pound and 14 pound, or I have 17 pound. On this particular one, I'd probably put the 14 pound mono and then work a topwater. That's the rod I will use in that particular situation. The next category of topwater is the walking baits. Now I have a couple of old here spooks. This is a, I don't know how long it is, 4.5 inches. I've had it for 25 years, maybe 30. And I've caught so many fish on this particular bait. What's interesting, by the way, about this bait is if I lock it down here and try to shake it, it's silent. It's a silent walking bait. I catch a lot of fish on this. I have 2 models with this that are old, and I keep them ready, and I love them. You know, the good old walking the dog thing. I also have just one super spook. This is a big giant guy, a bit bigger. If I feel I need a bigger bite or the bigger fish are biting, I can use this bait. But if I lock it down and shake it, yeah, it's got some sound in there. But notice the sound. It's, you know, it's noisy, but it's not. It's muffled, which is interesting. Then I have a Kicknocker here. This is about the same size as a super spook, shaped a little differently. And if I lock this guy down and shake it, yeah, the Kicknocker is definitely a loud walking bait. If it's early morning, I might have 2 rods set up. I'm always gonna have a popper. I just love the popper under calm conditions, okay? And then I'll always have a silent walking the dog on if it's calm in the morning. If it's a bit windier, I might upgrade to the Rico, maybe the PopMax, or I just go, no, I'm just gonna go with a Kicknocker here, right? Or a super spook maybe. I just bought some new colors, right? And I think it's important to try different things. This is a bluegill looking thing, and I'm definitely going for shad, bluegill, and then also I have this in both sizes. This is another shad, but it's designed for clear water. That underbelly is clear. So I'm thinking in my head, what lake am I going to? Am I going to put on a shad bait, or am I going to put on a bluegill bait? When I'm thinking about Apache, I'm going to think about the bluegill bait, or canning or saguaro if they're going to eat it. If I'm going to, you know, Lake Pleasant, out west on the Colorado River, I'm going to think shad, and I'm going to go bigger and maybe think even bigger, like gizzard shad. So I'll do that. I forgot. Let's go check this out. This guy is 3/4 of an ounce. Okay, this is the Kicknocker. And this guy here, the Super Spook, it's right at an ounce. Good. And then this, my silent one that I love, it's a 0.63 ounces. So these are fairly heavy. I'm going to show you a rod here that's going to surprise you because of how unusual it is, but how perfect it is for these type of heavy walking baits. When you have a heavy bait like that, and they're treble hook baits, you got to have the right rods. So as I said, I'm going to surprise you with this, but let's check it out and see what I got going here. This rod is a St. Croix Physics rod. It's 7'2", heavy power with a moderate action. It's also a hybrid rod, so it's got glass and carbon. Again, that is what makes this rod so interesting and so good for fishing treble hook type baits. But what's also important to understand is that these baits being heavier, this rod can handle a 1/2 ounce to 1 1/4 ounce. And that's exactly what these big baits are doing. These are 1 ounce baits. And this rod, when you pick it up and you have this heavy bait on the end and you swing it out there, it just feels perfect. What's also incredibly interesting about this rod is that moderate action with a glass backbone. When I make the cast and I'm working it back, because this is, I'm telling you, this is not a light rod. What I mean by that, it's got some glass in it, right? Whereas the carbon cranker over there, it feels like a feather in your hand. This guy's got some meat because of the glass. But when I'm walking that big heavy bait, it feels good because that moderate action it just helps. When it's going back and forth, it's just like, man, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. Of course, generally you're pointing your rod tip down. It's very comfortable. And then when the fish comes up and takes it, and all those treble hooks and you set on that fish, this rod that moderate action just bends right into that fish. It allows the fish to fight without tearing those hooks out. I don't know what to tell you, except that if you have one of these, in the tournament, in the Legend tournament, it's also called the Rip and Chatter, so it's a chatterbait rod. This is a chatterbait rod, it's a topwater rod, it's a spinnerbait rod, and it's a buzzbait rod. I have 2 of them, one in Legend tournament and one in physics, obviously, because this rod is so handy for me when I'm doing moving baits, single hook and or treble hook. Currently I have on here is a Lose Custom Pro 3. It has the PopMax casting system, which also helps with the backlash. So when I make that cast and that line is going out, that PopMax system kicks in and it starts to control the backlash. It's quite amazing. Just as soon as you think it's going to backlash on you, it starts cleaning itself up. It's just pretty incredible. I'm really, really happy thus far with this reel. And in combination here with these bigger baits that if they're flying and they're getting into the wind, especially when you like to fish these guys in the wind, or you have that little bit of extra help, okay? So I really find that to be fascinating. For the line, I'm going to put 17-pound monofilament on here. With these bigger baits, that extra 17 pounds, it's fine. It floats. I've tried it with fluorocarbon, it just doesn't work. And I don't want to put braid on here necessarily if I don't have to, because these heavy baits do cast pretty well, and the PopMax system just helps me a ton. I'm going to go with, the 17-pound mono and be happy with it. So now a new bait for me is the iJack, okay? This is a wake bait. I have never really thrown wake baits much, so for me, this is going to be something I'm going to try. Obviously, I picked a shad-looking one, something that I can throw almost anywhere. This bait is also heavy. Put it on here. It weighs just at an ounce, just a slightly bit under. And again, this kind of a heavy bait, I'm going to use that same rod, and I think it's going to be awesome. Zing it out there and just reel it back. And of course, when you're using a wake bait, I can say it. I think you need it calm or near calm so you can make that wake. So I don't know when or how I'm going to be able to use this. I haven't done it, but I really think when those fish aren't ready to come up for a walking bait, two has too much commotion. Even the silent one might be too much for it. I think the wake bait might be the solutions. As I've said in many videos, I know a lot already, but I'm always willing to try things and learn. And that's what I'm going to do with this bait. Lastly, the category for topwater baits in springtime is frogs. Okay, so I love the Blitz Lures frogs. They're designed here, and the headquarters is here in Arizona. I appreciate that. These samples came from them, and I'm very, very happy that I got them. And there's a couple of themes here I want to talk about, or models that I want to talk about. First of all, here is the traditional frog lure, right? The frog that's been around for forever. He makes a great one of these, and ironically, I think these are, people are using these less and less, but I don't think that should be the case. I think these are just fantastic baits. I think they skip really excellently, more than the other ones, and I think they work just fine, especially for sitting next to a bush or a tree. I'll throw this more often than not in grass and or tules, right? Because it's traditional, but a lot of the times we're going to fish brush, and when I do that, I like the Blitz Buzz Frog. You can see that that's very special and unique there. And it, by the way, it's white. Again, shad spawn is happening this time of year, so that white is awesome. And when you throw it next to a bush or a tree and you just give it a little pull, it does that little with its legs. It's exactly like spawning shad, or maybe there's a bass in there and the shad are trying to get away, and it really makes that noise on the surface, and then you can sit it there, and that's why I have white. I'll have this guy tied on here for the next time I go fishing. They also make two great popper ones in two different sizes, a smaller one and a larger one. You know, if you're thinking about shad, you know, I'm going, hey, why not get one that's a little smaller and it has these white things hanging in the water. When you give it a pop, it makes a noise. So I think this is pretty interesting. And of course, a larger one here, this is sort of a bluegill color. When I go fish lakes that have brush, like I said, tules or maybe trees, and lots of lay down stuff where you can't get any one of these in there, so you got to throw the frog. Now, I have a couple rods I like to use for frogs, and let me show you one. So this is a St. Croix Legend Tournament Sloppin' Frog. It's 7'4", heavy power with a fast action. It is a very, very powerful rod. A lot of people like using it for jigs, and by the way, tactical bassing guys love this particular model for jig fishing. I too use it for jig fishing, but I also have another rod. It's the 7'2", heavy power with a moderate fast action. So obviously when I'm throwing frogs, you know, look, I'm going straight braid all the way to the frog, especially if I'm in super heavy cover. If I have to care about a little bit of clear water, I want to get that frog up next to some tules out in the Colorado River somewhere, then I'll probably put 2 or 3 foot of 17-pound mono, and then I'll tie on the frog. And I have a few honorable mentions. This is a particularly highly specialized color for smallmouth at Apache Lake, which, by the way, don't exist yet. We're working on that. So I'm hoping that this particular guy is going to be used in about 3 years from now, catching big smallies at Apache Lake. I am having a old man moment. I don't know the name of this, but if you do, if you know the brand, put it down in the comments. I know some of you old guys know what it is, so refresh my memory. Then there's the Sammy. This is a little bit smaller walking bait, but it has its own special movement. I've got 1 or 2 of these, and I like it when I need more of a subtle. It's got rattles, but they're higher pitched than, let's say, the Kicknocker. And then, of course, the gunfish, which is an interesting bait that's a combination between a popper and a walking the dog, and it has a lot of noise. These are all fantastic baits for the right things. So if you're going to fish all day topwater, put on a popper in your favorite size, put on a walking bait in your favorite size. Perhaps in the morning when it's dead calm, use a wake bait. Or if it gets dead calm in the afternoon and you think nobody's going to eat a topwater, I don't know. I haven't tried it, but I'm going to give it a shot, okay? And, you know, under certain circumstances, you know, sometimes just throwing a combination that makes more commotion, walks and spits at the same time is something that'll work fantastic. Give it a shot. And of course, if you're in heavy cover, it's frogs, and the blow up on a frog is just amazing. I love it. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for visiting the channel. I appreciate it. Be free out there.